say the mind is a battlefield. But today we're going to say
The mind is a corn maze.
corn maze. I hate corn mazes a lot.
That can be scary, right?
So, fun story.
Okay.
I went on a corn maze in the mountains because I was in North Carolina, and that's what everybody does in October.
Fall.
Yeah. And so we went to the mountains, and we got in this corn maze, and I can barely find my way out of my house some days, so not the place for me. And we had little kids with us. And it was a haunted corn maze at a certain hour.
Ooh.
And so we were stuck in there. We were stuck on the opposite side, and I could hear the chainsaws starting to rev up.
Okay, I would not like that one bit.
Girl, I was freaking out because, like, my fight or flight, man, I'm gonna punch somebody.
That's right. I'm going through the maze. I ain't stopping. I'm not taking the path.
Like, y'all are just killing that chainsaw. It's about to get real up in here.
Wow, I've only been in them like during the day, full sun, absolutely not haunted, and that's bad enough.
Well, so we started out early enough that we should have been okay, but you know,
It was a little tricky.
a little tricky.
And you know, so is the mind. The mind is a little tricky, and I think we can all relate to the fact that, especially over the past few months, our thoughts can overwhelm us. Our fears, our insecurities, those memories that chatter and kind of swirl around in our brain and in our mind that can try to overtake us and overwhelm us. I've been trying to specifically focus on things like, tell me something good that happened in your day, or what's the one thing that you have to look forward to? What's the good news? Like all these positive things, because the mind does such a good job of taking us down the wrong path and the scary path sometimes. It's this wild maze in there. And I started thinking about that, and Scripture gives us a lot of details on the mind. It says that the mind is wicked, sinful, depraved, deceived, easily led astray, and worldly. I mean, you can check out these verses for yourself. We'll list them. We'll do that. We'll put them up there. But I'm not making that stuff up. And so if I was having a party and you called to tell me you were bringing a friend and you described her as, well, she's a little wicked, sinful, depraved, a little deceived, easily led astray, and a little worldly, but I'm going to bring her along, of course I would be like, sure, great.
So you're bringing Melissa of the 90s?
Yeah, or Allison of the...
She was super fun.
Yeah, I know, super fun. Not the best influence. You'd be like, or maybe not.
You'd be like, just kidding, we canceled the party.
Exactly. We had to reschedule
We
because
got
of the Rona. How long do you think we'll be able to use that one, right?
Or about then.
So, yeah. It's getting old. It's getting old already. It was old 4 weeks ago. So, you know, knowing that about my mind, I love and I'm so thankful that God knew that was going to be so important, because, you know, if you think about it, when you're entering in a corn maze, like when you had entered that corn maze, if you had a map and you knew what to anticipate and you knew at least a little bit of how to maneuver through the maze, it would have given you a little more confidence, right? It would have been a lot less discouraging, unnerving, scary. And so dealing with all these fears and insecurities and crazy stuff that goes on in our brains, if we can use the map that the Bible's given us that tells us the truth about our mind, that it will lead us astray if we aren't, just like we spoke about last week, listening to God's whisper, following his row in the maze, his way out. It can easily lead us astray. And so if we know that, it's a lot easier to tackle the mind and overcome it.
Yeah, you know when you go to a corn maze, they like give you the flag and you can hold it up and have someone surrender you?
Oh, we didn't have a
maybe
flag.
It's just me. Maybe
I must
it's
have been in the easy corn maze. I was in the toddler corn maze or something.
But like, it's your flag, right?
Yeah.
It's your white flag. Like, I surrender. God, tell me the truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Show me the way. Get me out of here, right? Because I am lost. But you know, there are ways out of the corn maze.
So, you know, what's interesting is I love listening to Caroline Leaf, Dr. Caroline Leaf, and she's a neuroscientist. It's a really big word that I probably shouldn't.
She's a lot smarter than we are, is what that means.
Yeah, lots of letters before her name. Anyway, so she said, you know, your mind has these pathways. And so think about if you were to go to a forest and you didn't know which way to go, and so you just took this one path, right? There are no paved paths yet. So you took this one path, And then you came back, and then the next time you came, like the path wasn't great, but what are you going to do? You're probably going to take that path again because at least you've been there before, right?
There's some comfort there. Even if it's scary and dark in there, at least that gives you a small sense of comfort. Think about when we go to church and we go week to week. We still sit in the same seats that we sat in the very first time we went to our church. And that was like over 12 years ago.
Girl, I'm going to come to the 4:15 service and sit in your seats.
I mean, we are creatures of habit. That is so true, what she says.
Yeah, and so basically you create this rut for your thoughts. And then it becomes a mindless thing that you automatically think that way.
And the mind is like, I got her.
And she's already been down this path before, but the thing is, it takes you darker and further and deeper into that place every single time you go, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And so instead, we have to create new pathways. It's going to take work on our part, which is what we've been talking about.
And truth.
Yeah.
And truth, for sure. Recognizing what those thoughts are that are churning around. And, that's interesting. So we have a friend who has done some neurofeedback is what they call it. It's not biofeedback. I don't know what that is, but it's different. And it's essentially, apparently a lot of athletes do it as well for concentration and that sort of thing. But this particular friend did it for anxiety. And they explained it as your brain, exactly what this doctor said, your brain has been going down this one path. It has this one connection. When it starts to worry, it goes straight to this one tragic event that you experienced. And that's not all scary things in your life. They're not that bad. And so this neurofeedback would create alternate paths, but it would help you, I guess, speed that process along to create alternate paths. So it's like if something scary is happening, it doesn't mean you're going to die, even though you almost did, right? Or in that situation, it doesn't mean everything you experience is going to be like that. So it helps create these other pathways. And God's truth certainly shows us that when we're studying His Word.
Yeah, so did it work?
Yeah, it did. It did work. And they're, I think, like book solid. Especially for athletes and people with anxiety. I think it really helps with ADD. We're not a science show, but I do know this person personally.
Thankfully.
Yeah, that way y'all really would be in trouble then. But the other thing is, once you recognize that, you've got to fill your head. We got to take care of our head. We got to recognize our enemy, which is our mind, and we've got to harness those thoughts that churn away in there, and then we've got to fill our mind with the truth of God's promises, and His love for us, instead of letting those negative things take over. Because I'm telling you, I can go down some scary roads in my mind.
Yeah, and you know what? The one thing I heard from Dr. Caroline Leaf that blew me away is she said we have over 50,000 thoughts a day. And I was sitting there going, I don't have 50,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thoughts, right? And if I do have 50,000 thoughts a day, what am I thinking? So it got me really paying attention to what was going on. And when I figured out the thoughts that were running in the back of my head, kind of like a reel that you don't pay attention to, but it's kind of always playing in the background, like the music in the elevator when it finally stops. Yeah. You're like, hallelujah!
Absolutely.
And so when I heard those thoughts that I was thinking about myself, I thought, oh my gosh, I would not go to lunch with myself. I'm a terrible enemy of myself. And so in the Bible, in 2 Corinthians 10:5, it says that we hold captive every thought. And I thought, well, if the Bible tells me to do that, I think I'm going to try to do that. And so
that's going to take a lot of work with 50,000 a day.
I think I'm up to 10. I got 10. But it says that we take captive every thought and we make it obedient to Christ. And so I was like, well, to Christ's word, right? And so I would have to stop and say, well, why am I feeling that way? Because our thoughts make feelings, right? Yeah. Why do I suddenly feel sadness? Oh, because I just saw on an Instagram post that somebody is on the beach, not right now, but someone is actually out on the beach and enjoying a vacation, and I can't do that. And so how does that make me feel? It makes me feel sad, but shouldn't I be happy for them? And does that make me less of a person because I can't go to the beach? No. So that thought doesn't need to be there, right?
I like that. I like that a lot. harnessing it. You're harnessing it instead of just letting it take root. You're like lassoing that sucker and throwing it over the corn.
Well, it's funny, like you were saying, you get there faster. So in the beginning, I would feel sad for 15 minutes and go, wait, why do I feel sad? I don't remember I feel sad. Never mind, I don't feel sad anymore.
Yeah. Woohoo, this is great.
Good.
So if you have ADD, this is really going to be easier for you.
Right. But then, now I'm so aware of them that I can snatch them out of the air, like figuratively.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really one on listening to lots of podcasts and studying the mind and all kinds of stuff. And so I listened to a podcast by Ed Milet, and he's an entrepreneur. He's like, go get him, you got this, real positive guy.
Yeah.
And he had this guy on recently, and his name was Dr. Daniel Amen. And Dr. Daniel Amen says that we have an ant problem, every single one of us. Do you know what ants are?
I don't.
Okay.
I mean, I do know what the little black ants are.
Yeah, well, imagine.
And they hurt if they bite.
And they're like pesky.
Yeah, well, we need some good pest control if we've got ants.
Yes, but his ants are your automatic negative thoughts. So if I look in the mirror and I go, oh, girl, like if I'm expecting to see myself in the mirror and think, girl, you're looking bad today, I'm already going to see that.
Right.
But if I go, you did a really good job yesterday, taking
plucking
care
those
of
eyebrows.
Yourself, plucking your eyebrows and your chin hair, then I'm going to see a different view. And so he has a thing to do with those thoughts. Mm-hmm. So he says you take the thought that you're feeling or thinking and you say, is this true? That's number one. Number two, is it absolutely true? So, I might have not eaten great yesterday, but that doesn't mean that
you
I
gained 5 pounds. That's what I say. Oh, I should have never had that dessert. I feel 5 pounds heavier today.
Yeah, but then if
was
you
that
keep
true?
going,
Well, yeah, it's true you had dessert, but no, it's not true that I gained 5 pounds from it.
Right. So it's not absolutely.
So it's not absolutely true.
And then how do you feel when you believe that thought?
Well, I feel guilty and terrible if I believe that I'm gained 5 pounds from eating dessert.
Now, how would you feel without that thought?
Great, and I may have dessert again.
Oh, I like this already.
Yeah, so much better.
Right. So
everything's better without those negative, guilty, shameful things that we throw on ourselves, for sure.
Yeah, so then you take that original thought that you had, and you reverse it with the opposite.
So I lost 5 pounds when I ate that dessert last night.
So that is actually complete denial. So let's not go that far.
Just teasing. I was hoping that would stick. Like maybe I can believe it and make it so.
Okay, that is your test for the next 10 days. When you eat dessert every night.
Just kidding. Sorry, we'll get back on track now. We digress.
Are we off track?
No, squirrel. So change it.
So take that thought and change it. And then when you start to feel that thought coming, like, oh, Allison, you're such a bad person because you ate that dessert last night and now you're useless.
I can have dessert every now and then.
Yes, with a healthy thought.
Right.
And, God's word actually says something about ants.
Ooh. He is the best pest controller.
I know. When they say that, like, the answers to your life
are all in the Bible.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, Proverbs 6:6, I think that's what it is. Let me get up here. Proverbs 6:6 says, go to the ant, you sluggard, consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler. So, maybe we should rule our thoughts, our ants.
And it's a lot easier to do that when we can recognize it for what it is. That it is always trying to deceive us and make us sinful and wicked and take us in the opposite direction than God. And I think you said something a while back about how we need to take care of our minds. And I think that is so important. And I think if you think about your body, they always say, we need to fill it up with good things, right? You are what you eat. Well, you are what you listen to, and you are what you read and watch as well. So what are the television shows that you're watching? What are the things that you're reading and filling your mind with? And I remember, so specifically, I remember waking up one day and realizing I was working out at the Y. This was, I don't know, probably 14 years ago. And I was listening to my standard playlist that I'd always kind of listened to, run to, worked out to. And the words hit me for the first time. I was like, oh, those words they're not very nice, And so I called my Bible study teacher at the time. I was like, I'm going to need a CD of your greatest, funnest, most hippest Christian praise music. And I started listening to that. And from then on, except for the other night during quarantine when I had Alexa play top hip-hop 80s for my daughter and sang to MC Hammer and Beastie Boys in the kitchen and totally traumatized her for the rest of her life. But I changed all the music that I listened to praise and worship. Because what I realized was, whether I knew it or not, my mind, in the back of my head, and y'all may be like this too, all day it was running in the back of my mind like, I'm too sexy for my shirt. Or
that
like, shake your groove thing. And I'm a terrible singer. We'll get Melissa to sing those. But it was all these songs, and honey, I don't need anybody else telling me to shake my groove thing. I got to go the opposite, right? So I need those songs playing over and over again in the back of my head saying, your grace is enough. You know, I need those words of truth running over and over in the back of my mind that I'm not necessarily always paying attention to, but I need my mind recording that stuff and playing it back. And so you need to also think about what you're filling your mind with.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we can go all the way into your kids and the video games and all that stuff, but y'all know how that goes. But, you know, saying that it needs help, Dr. Amen says it is brain health. It's not mental illness. It's your brain is not healthy. And so your brain is an organ like your heart is an organ. But the difference is when your heart is not healthy, what happens?
It fails.
It fails.
It causes other problems.
And you can normally see something on the outside.
That's right.
Right? You see a visible change, and so you think, I want to fix this, because, I mean, I don't know about you, but I can be shallow thinking, need to make sure I look good, so my heart's good.
But that's interesting that you say that, because usually people don't. They know they have high cholesterol and bad heart health, but they won't change their diet, even though they know, until something really bad happens, like they have a heart attack, and they ended up in the hospital. And then they start to pay attention to their heart health. And sometimes that's what it takes for us, right?
Yeah.
I know that I've been there. Like, it took a giant thing, right, for the Lord to, like, shake it out of me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, let's get to the root of this.
Well, you know, and he says that your brain is an organ and it needs to be cared for, and only certain, you know, doctors and neuroscientists and stuff really focus on this aspect of the brain. Yeah. They just want to give you medication to fix your anxiety.
Cover it up and give you some other problems.
Right, but what else can you do? And so if you can just go check him out, he's got so much information on how to be preventative with your brain health, just like you are with your heart health, or your skin is the biggest organ, and make sure you're doing XYZ with it.
Yeah.
And we never talk about the brain as an organ.
That is so true. And we'll also post some scriptures that you should take some time looking up that remind us of who we are in Christ, who we really are, and not who our mind is trying to trick us into believing that we are. Like Romans 5:8, Romans 15:7, there's Malachi 3:17. We have several verses that we'll post for y'all to look up this week that just, it's the truth. And so fill up. The more we are filling up, the problem is, I always picture it like a vase with a hole in it. That's my brain. And so
it's very fragile.
You know, I've got to continually fill up my mind with the truth of God's word and the truth of who I am in him, that I'm forgiven and loved and adored and beautiful in his eyes, because my brain, there's a hole in it. And those words are so easily forgotten. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not reading that truth every day, then my mind will quickly take over. And so we can't stop. You can't read it today and take 6 months off and think that it's not, the truth isn't seeping out. You've got to continually fill your mind with that truth, because the mind is always trying to trick us and take those truths away, for sure.
I think one of my favorite words is you are chosen. Because, you know, so many of us feel like we don't measure up, or we aren't loved by someone that should have loved us. And you are chosen. Every single one of us.
Every single one of us. Like, everybody listening, everybody not listening, you were chosen. And Jesus decided that you were so worthy, that you were so enough, that he would die for you on the cross, so that you could live with him eternally in heaven one day. Like, wow. If he didn't think you were, if you weren't chosen, if you weren't enough, he wouldn't have made that decision.
Yeah, and the fact that he literally wants to be with you every day.
Yes.
He has lots of things to do, but he's never too busy or too important for each and every one of us.
I mean, he's in this attic with us, and Buck, our elk,
Buck.
I just named him.
If you didn't listen to last podcast, we're in this attic space.
Oh, yeah.
It's really fun.
we're in the attic with our elk.
He looks happy. I think he's singing.
Yeah, we'll have to post this picture a few times.
Yeah.
We hope that this has helped y'all just sort of harness some of those thoughts in your mind and recognize the mind for what it is, and look up some of those verses that tell the truth about what the mind is. And I love that God felt, again, that it was important for us to know the character of our minds enough to put these scriptures in his word, because he knew that we would constantly be in a battle with our minds. So we hope you win the war, girl, this week.
Keep fighting.
Keep fighting, keep praying, keep believing, keep trusting, and keep filling your mind up with the truth.
Crank up that worship music.
That's right. Until next time on The Sinner and the Saint.